sack. We'll to Sutton Coalfield tonight.
Shakespeare, as usual, had the right idea. And now we're treading in Forsyth's footsteps to Sutton Coalfield, where the new Midlands transmitter of the BBC television service has just been opened.
This is the BBC television service. Good evening.
So now, if you're ready, the taxi is waiting to take you to the Café Continental.
Tonight's program in the series Round the Gallery,
Designed for women.
ladies and gentlemen, Music Hall.
And now, to end the evening,
To start the story from the beginning, here is a personality known to viewers since the opening of the service at Alexandra Palace in 1936. Major Nichols.
You'll probably be surprised to know that the real beginnings of television go back to about the 1870s with the discovery of the selenium cell. Images of a very crude sort were obtainable even then, but it didn't become a practical possibility until the beginning of the 1930s. After untiring years of work, John Logie Baird evolved a system which produced a picture on a 30-line receiving screen. This was the first system actually used for public transmission. As early as 1932, shoppers, sitting around sets like this one, saw special transmissions in a West End store.
I can only say, as an actor, that one must expect extraordinary things to happen. But this new invention is quite amazing. And I only hope you're hearing and seeing me in the next room.
Well, that was my first encounter with television. But in 1936, I was appointed senior television announcer of the first regular high-definition program in the world at Alexandra Palace. My co-announcers were, of course, Jasmine Bligh and Elizabeth Cowell.
While the news was going round, a home was prepared for the new venture at Alexandra Palace, high up on its hill in North London. One wing of this great building was taken over to house studios, transmitter and staff. This part of the palace, which was built at the end of the last century, had to be structurally altered for its new tenants to accommodate 2 television studios, transmitter and control rooms, dressing rooms, scene dock, offices, all the necessities of production. On top of the rebuilt Eastern Tower, another tower of girders was erected. This tower, people call it a mast, but to engineers it's a self-supporting tower, unlike the new mast at Sutton Coalfield, has long been the symbol of television in this country. A landmark by day and a red-lighted beacon by night. We moved into our offices and filled the canteen with talk of camera positions, lighting, and so on, and very soon the day came when we actually went on the air. We had to pioneer our own technique as we went along. A good deal of the equipment and routine would seem out of date nowadays, but we managed nonetheless to put out a regular program every afternoon and evening. Following Radio Olympia in August 1936 came our official public opening in November. It was in this first official program that Adele Dixon, accompanied by Hyam Greenbaum and the television orchestra, appropriately sang, "Television is Here."
One by one they play their part in this latest of the art to bring you enchantment to you.
Under the BBC's first director of television, Gerald Clark, we started a daily service which rapidly grew in status and popularity until suddenly the war stopped it.
But on the 7th of June 1946, Jersey and Bly reopened the television service, and our post-war era began.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Do you remember me, Jersey and Bly? Well, here we are after a lapse of nearly 7 years, ready to start again.
The following morning, viewers were able to see the first of many unforgettable post-war outside broadcasts, the Victory Parade in the Mall.
And now come the Royal Navy motorbicyclists heralding the commanders of the Royal Navy. They're coming in pairs of cars. Two abreast. The left-hand one started as Admiral of the Fleet, Sir James Somerville, and the right-hand one, Admiral Sir Martin Dunbar Napier.
The world has embarked on new courses with the coming of peace, and in these crowded years, television and television film cameras have recorded and brought home to viewers the pattern of events at home and overseas. The trials of the Queen Elizabeth, the visit of the royal family to South Africa, the Olympic Games, when the torch was carried to Britain and the competition of nations was friendlier than usual. The birth of a son to the heir of the throne, Her Royal Highness Princess Elizabeth. And so, with growing strength, we achieve the present and face the future. Meanwhile, our studio methods are growing to maturity. This is Studio B, with Mary Malcolm making an announcement.
Well, as you can see, we've come a long way since those early days, but our quarters are still very cramped. Until we move into our new quarters at Shepherd's Bush and ultimately at the White City, we have to stage the bulk of our afternoon and evening transmissions in just 2 studios. And this is how it's done. Early on any day, the camera crews and the rest of the studio staff are busy preparing for the evening show. The cast, rehearsed elsewhere, are before the cameras for the first time. These preparations are for a play. As the set is built and furnished with properties, the boom operator swings the microphone through the course by which it will follow the performance, passing secretly from player to player, and on the lighting gallery, as we call it, the electrician sets the lights. The producer takes his place in the control gallery, giving instructions to the staff in the studio below through microphone and headphones, and watching on these monitor panels the pictures being previewed and transmitted. By transmission time, the stage is set, the action rehearsed, and everything moves forward to the moment of going on the air. The producer's secretary settles down in the control gallery to follow the cueing. And now we present The Birth Stratagem, a restoration comedy by George Farquhar.
Fade in camera 3. Preview camera 1. Mixed.
And so another studio program goes on the air. And now MacDonald Hobley is going to show you some rather different backroom activities. In fact, the very latest development of the BBC television service.
The Television Advisory Committee, presided over by Lord Trefgarne, recommended that the range of the BBC television service be extended. The first step being a high-power transmitting station near Birmingham. The transmitting station was to be designed, built and operated by the BBC, although it was to be the responsibility of the GPO to link it with Alexandra Palace, both in vision and sound. Two methods of linking were used, cable and radio. Let's look at the cable route first. It runs from Alexandra Palace to the Museum Telephone Exchange in London, and then through Watford, Berkhamsted, Tring, Aylesbury, Towcester, Coventry, and the Birmingham Telephone Exchange, and then to Sutton Coldfield. But first, let's look at the cable being made. This cable isn't for the exclusive use of television. As well as 2 television coaxial tubes and 16 television control circuits, it carries 8 sound broadcasting units, 18 telephone control circuits, and 4 telephone coaxial tubes, capable of the simultaneous transmission of 1,200 telephone calls. The television coaxial tubes are wrapped in steel and paper tapes and wound onto a metal cylinder, ready for stranding into the composite cable. Cable had to be dried in a vacuum oven to extract all moisture and then stored in a completely dry atmosphere to await its final lead covering. In the autumn of 1947, the first length of completed cable was lowered into the ground at Alexandra Palace, and the first 180 yards of the new link laid. As 180 yards is the content of one drum, it took quite a few drums to reach the first destination, the Museum Telephone Exchange in Bloomsbury. At the Museum Exchange, the cable was led into the line's termination room. From there to Birmingham, there are 2 alternatives, the cable route and the radio link. This is the cable route. Every few miles along this route, the signals pass through a repeater station which boosts or amplifies the signals, sending them on to the next. And so the line is extended north, past Berkhamsted and through the Chilterns along the route of road, railway and canal, to Tring and Aylesbury. Across the Aylesbury Plain and into the Midlands, joining Watling Street at Towcester and running alongside the heavy commercial traffic of the main road to Coventry, and from there on through Birmingham to Sutton Coldfield. Meanwhile, the radio link has also been constructed, and it's by this method that the opening transmissions are reaching Sutton Coldfield. Naturally, there was a great deal of research to be done first. All the radio link equipment had to be specially designed, each component part newborn in the drawing office of a research laboratory, first outlined in pencil and then translated into 3-dimensional reality in the research department's workshop. Modified, improved, scrapped, or finally accepted by the research engineers and submitted to the trials of the testing bench until a completely satisfactory system of television relaying had been evolved. The relay stations now stand like a chain of beacons between London and Birmingham. The first, fed by the cable route from Alexandra Palace, surmounts the Museum Telephone Exchange and passes its signals on to Harrow Weald. The third station stands between Dunstable and the Ivanhoe Escarpment, from where more primitive beacons burned at the coming of the Armada. From here, the signals pass to Blackdown near Charwelton and on to Rowley Regis, to be relayed from a second mast directed to Birmingham. to the main transmitting station at Sutton Coalfield.
All these relay stations are similar in layout. The incoming signal passes from the receiving area into the receiver in one of the two buildings at the foot of the mast. From the receiver on the right, they're fed to the transmitter on the left, and from there to the second of the two for onward transmission. In the event of a breakdown, a duplicate unit automatically comes into action. The stations are entirely unmanned. The second building is a powerhouse where a standby generator starts itself if there's any failure of the electricity supply from the grid. The masts are temporary and are being replaced by permanent towers. A given aerial or paraboloid can be used for either receiving or transmitting. Their programs can be relayed from London to Sutton Coalfield, or the other way if they originate in the Midlands and are to be relayed to London.
The BBC was building the Midlands station while the post office was working on the links.
Foundations were dug for the concrete base of the 750-foot mast and for the anchors for the steel stays that support it.
The power supply transformers were installed in a separate building adjacent to the main block.
The hole excavated for the mast foundation was filled with reinforced concrete, and the anchor foundations were treated in the same way.
The cable trench was completed about this time, and the cable fed through to the line's termination equipment, ready to be connected up when the equipment was installed.
By the spring of 1949, the mast foundations were ready.
Now the work of erecting the mast could begin.
This base plate was to carry the whole weight of the mast, nearly 150 tons, and a 2-inch metal ball was to lock the bottom of the mast in position.
The first section was now ready, and up she went. Meanwhile, other work was going on. Equipment arrived week by week while the building was still being completed. At last came the final stage of checking and testing everything. By the time the vision and sound transmitters were installed, the mast and aerials were in place, and the station was ready to transmit test signals and subsequently actual programs to the Midlands. Reports already show that the effective range of this new station, the most powerful in the world, even exceeds the original estimate.
The mast itself is a major engineering triumph. It carries a lift up most of its height and points its aerials high into the Midland sky.
potentially millions of television receiving aerials standing above the roofs of Midland houses of all sizes and kinds form the last link of this new system, a new gateway to the Midlands.
In order to find out what the people of the Midlands thought about this new development of television, David Marshall of the BBC Midland region went out with a mobile unit to collect opinions.
Well, the Midlands, as we know it, is a fair-sized chunk of the country, extending from the Welsh border over to the east coast. Now, we've chosen 3 people to talk about television. They are a representative of light engineering from Birmingham, someone from the hosiery and textile trade, East Midlands, and a market gardener from South.
I can see that you make all sorts of things here, Alf. Now, what about this television business?
Well, I'm delighted to see that progress made in the world's history, to enable the bedridden and the aged to see the life and vigour of movement that occurs out of doors, scenes they might never otherwise have viewed.
A very good thing indeed, I quite agree. Now, are you going to buy a set yourself?
You may be sure that I shall do that. It's our duty to encourage human progress, especially when it adds to our happiness and broadens our minds.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more else.
How does this television business strike you?
Well, there are many events that I'm looking forward to, particularly sport and ceremonial events, which we don't have the chance to be here.
What about plays, for instance?
Well, that is yet, I have to be convinced. I think that one should get the atmosphere, which one can only get by the audience, and the music and the general atmosphere.
I know just what you mean, yes. And what about this design here? I should think that television will help you very much from a professional point of view, fashion parades and that sort of thing.
Yes, we get very few fashion parades here in the Midlands, and we're looking forward very much to the London ones. I'm hoping to see them all.
And get a few ideas too, maybe.
And get a few ideas, yes.
Right, well, John, it's a bit nippy down here today, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But what are you doing down here this morning?
Well, John, I wanted to find out something about the countryman's view of television.
Well, I think the countryman will welcome you. He always loved his wireless. He's got to make his own amusements during the winter, and I think it'll be a great acquisition.
It's going to widen your interest, then?
Definitely, yes.
So you're looking forward to it, then?
Yes, I think the countryman is looking forward to this television.
Jolly good. Well, John, let's have a look at your onions and your parsley, shall we?
All right, come along and have a look at it.
Right.
On Saturday the 17th of December 1949, the new Midlands transmitter was formally opened by the Postmaster General. So the Midlands service is opened. And the new landmark, which has arisen above the Warwickshire countryside, is also a landmark in the development of a nationwide television service. Already plans are in hand for a new station at Home Moss in the Pennines to bring television up to the north, and for another to serve the highly populated areas of southern Scotland. If its successive stages develop as planned, television will, in some 5 years' time, cover the greater part of this island.